Guys, it's heyteacherraf@gmail.com. Click subscribe and see more tidbits like this. Hey, today I want to talk about Atlantis. You've heard of it, right? Yeah, it's the stuff of legends. Hey, how come we've never found it? Or have we found it technically, but no one has released that information through the proper channels? Who would have thought? Atlantis has been discovered. Whoa. Yeah, breaking news, breaking news. So apparently Atlantis has some nicknames. The Eye of Africa, the Eye of Mauritania, the Eye of the Sahara. It's about the location, Mauritania. Mauritania is in Africa, Western Africa. It's right next to the Sahara. Scholars and historians are debating, why is that? Very far away from the ocean, far enough away where it's not at sea level. It's approximately 1,200 feet above sea level currently. Does that mean that 12,000 years ago it couldn't have been at sea level? Well, that's where the debate comes in. So if you know about recent events, probably in the last 15 years, you've heard that when huge earthquakes happen in the middle of the ocean, they create these ginormous waves and tsunamis, and they roll onto the land and just destroy everything, right? And they cover the land in mud and water and just pretty much erase everything that was there. So I'm assuming and theorizing that's what happened to Atlantis because of how mud was shifted onto the canals that were dug out in order to create, I'm assuming, a defense within the civilization, or perhaps the canals were just dug around to create a barrier so when waves swept in from the ocean, they wouldn't go further than a certain amount of area, right? So what they did was they carved or cut into the ground 3 separate moats in a circle. You know what I mean? And then 2 patches of land around. So 5 rings. So if a huge wave came, it would be a defense, right? So it would like hit the first patch of land, and then there's water, and then there's a second patch of land, then there's water, and then there's the circle, the inner circle of the hub, if you will, of Atlantis. Now, why is Atlantis such a hot topic? Does it really matter if this is Atlantis or if Atlantis is in the Caribbean or some other location? It's not really that important. Well, archaeologists would argue that it is important because they want to excavate certain land and find artifacts and then take a look at the culture and the history and the people and how they lived and what they were up to and perhaps what they knew, and maybe we can learn something from them. Sure, that's great. Perfect, right? Another piece in the history and the puzzle of humanity. That's great. But really, Atlantis is a legend because of the idea that there was a library that held all of this ancient knowledge and information that was lost. And some people theorize that we have only scraped the surface of the knowledge that was kept there. Whether that's true or not, perhaps we'll never find out. That's why people are fascinated with Atlantis. Do some research, such as Herodotus, Plato, and Eratosthenes, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, all had something to say about Atlantis. And you look at the ancient maps of it up to a present map, it really does make sense that it's in the area of Mauritania. The word Atlantis, spelled with an E instead of an I, in the same exact area. I mean, give or take, you really have to look at this map. It's not the same shape as Africa today, but perhaps that's because they didn't explore the southern part of Africa. I don't really know, or maybe, who knows, drew his map the way he did. But if you take a look at his map and you line it up with today's map, it does make some kind of inference, some kind of logical sense. You can deduce that that's the specific area that he was talking about. Then there are other things. The radius of Atlantis, the rings of the radius are 23.5 kilometers approximately from start to finish, and then the entire area of Atlantis is approximately 48 kilometers. kilometers. So the 23 kilometers is what is very interesting, because apparently, from what I've read, that lines up with an ancient figure that I believe Plato also stated, that how long or wide Atlantis would be, 23 kilometers. Well, the circular rings and then the hub, you understand, and then the outer area, he didn't calculate that. That's what I'm assuming from researching this. Also wanted to tell you that a fun fact is that Mauritania's first king was named Atlas. Atlas. And apparently there was a King Atlas of Atlantis. So that's another tidbit of information that lines up. You can't discount that. Now, about the 1200 feet above sea level, historians state that there was a mass extinction event 12,000 years ago, approximately, called the Younger-Dryas mass extinction event. So who knows what happened during that time, but anytime that there's a mass extinction event, usually there's a meteor, a volcano, or some other humongous natural phenomenon that is very sudden and intense. So if it's an earthquake that created a tsunami, that would make sense. Or if it's a volcano or some type of plate tectonics underneath Africa, a volcano trying to push its way up or trying to erupt magma, but it's really trapped underneath because it's not really a fully evolved volcano with an opening. It's underground and it's just pushing all that magma up. It would definitely raise the earth. Who's really to say if an event like that occurred or didn't occur, but the probability is that it could occur, and scientists have acknowledged that Western Africa has risen. Now, they don't necessarily know from what. Some of them argue that it's taken millions of years. Others argue that it's volcanic activity beneath the surface that's pushing the land higher and higher. Asked from space. There have been photographs taken of the Eye of Mauritania, and it looks exactly the way it's been described by Plato, Atlantis that is, with these rings, 3 beds of water, 2 rings of sand. So it does look like a perfect match, actually. So many people have this fantasy that they want to go to Mauritania and excavate the Eye of Mauritania to confirm if it is Atlantis or confirm if it's a different civilization, and see if they can find some artifacts and so forth. And that's a great idea, and it's fun, and I would definitely go on this adventure if I had the funds. Not only that, if I had a community of people who were experts in their field and knew how to lead such an excavation. Not only that, but to get into a remote area like that and be able to get out later on, that requires some intelligence and planning ahead of time, because you're going through that Sahara desert sand, and if you've ever been out there and you've been in a 4-wheel drive vehicle, you will be stuck in the sand guaranteed. So you have to go in a caravan so you can have your neighbor, friend, whatever, pull you out when you get it stuck. And that's where the problem, because you can only get so far in that sand. You know, if it gets too fine, you're not going to be able to get further in. So you would have to take a flight and land somewhere, and then probably go by camel, I would imagine, because I don't think you can really get through most of the Sahara by off-road vehicle. I think only parts of it. So that's something that has to be really taken into consideration and planned out. But I think it's a great idea to go out there and excavate that area. I'm not sure about the laws, and I don't know about being culturally appropriate, if that's something that needs to be considered, of course. But I think the fantasy is definitely enough to keep a lot of people entertained. And now with the internet and with YouTube and all of these proper social media channels out and about, the idea about this kind of information is going to spread like wildfire. So more people are going to hear about it, more people are going to think that it is a treasure hunt. The latest treasure hunt, X marks the spot, and if you get there before anyone else and excavate something, it's going to be worth a lot of money. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but of course archaeologists would probably agree with that statement. Now, I don't necessarily think it's a good idea to go out there unless, like I said, you're in a huge community of very skilled, trained, and people with high-level expertise. Because once you go in, there's no guarantee you're getting out. And that sounds kind of extreme, but if you've ever been to that part of the world, there is no technology. There is no emergency phone number you call and somebody comes and gets you. You're out in the middle of sand, fine sand, not hard, rocky type of sand. And if you get stuck, that could be the last thing you see. So it's one of these tricky type of expeditions that requires a lot of planning and money. So if you're going to do this expedition and you've got the funds and you've got the expertise and you've got the numbers, please let me know, because I'd love to come along and check this out. Well, I hope you gathered some new tidbits from this video, and if you'd like to start your teaching journey, just email me at heyteacherraf@gmail.com or click subscribe and you'll see more tidbits like this. Enjoy your journey. Take care.